Hi everyone, Adarsh here. So today we're gonna see how we can create a MVC application, basically a Spring MVC application, and secure it by using Spring security. And then there we are using a user detail service, and data that user information is stored in the MySQL database, and which we're gonna pull it from by using Hibernate. And then again those Hibernate repositories gonna use inside the Spring services, and then going forward inside the user detail services and all. So this is a XML based configuration application where XML are used for Spring configurations and all. So let's jump into the code and see how it looks like. So starting from pom.xml, we have a group ID, artifact ID, version, packaging as a WAR file, and then name, URL, organizational tag, license tag, developer tag, repositories, and then bunch of property where we have project name, source code, encoding, JDK version, Spring version is 4.1.6, Spring security version it's a 4.0.0, and then we have a Hibernate version which is 4.1.0 final release, and then we have a JUnit version as well as SLF4J, and followed by logback version. So we have a Spring Web dependency followed by Spring Web MVC dependency, and then we have a Spring security dependencies starting from Spring Core, Spring Web, Spring Config, and tag libs, and then we have a Spring transaction dependency as well as Spring ORM dependency. Then we have a C3P0 connection pool. Then Hibernate core dependency, we have Hibernate C3P0 and cache dependency. Then we have a servlet API dependency and JSTL dependencies, followed by JUnit dependency, and then SLF4J logback and sitemesh dependency, and last we have MySQL connector dependency here. And then we have a build configuration where we have configured a WAR file name. The resource configuration inside the plugin, we have standard Maven compiler plugin as well as a Eclipse JT plugin. So basically it's gonna create a inline container for the application so that we can just avoid deploying this web application to external web containers and all. So testing become very handy for us. So inside the code we have Java directory, resources, and web app. So in Java directory we have a controller, entity manager, repositories, and security. Inside the resources we have properties, Spring configurations, SQL scripts, cache, logback, and inside the web INF we have CSS, JS, web INF. Inside web app we have CSS, JS, web INF, index.html, and inside web INF we have style, which is basically a sitemesh template files. View we have actual JSP files, decorator.xml, sitemesh.xml, and web.xml basically. So let's get into one by one. So starting from the Hibernate layer, we have inside the entity we have a construct where we have an entity. So in the entity is a custom interface which is extended from serializable, clonable, and comparable. So it has get ID as well as set ID methods. Then we have an abstract entity. So abstract entity is an implementation of entity where we have ID, which is Hibernate annotation, generated value, generator type, identity, column name, where we have mentioned couple of attributes like insertable true, nullable false, unique it should be unique, and updatable true. Then we have a constructor here. We have override the get ID, set ID, and all. We have certain callbacks here, and compare to methods. Then we have a user entity, extends from abstract entity. So ID and so the ID we will get from the abstract entity, and rest attributes we are specifying here like username, email, password, phone number, enable, first name, last name, created date, modified date, and users. So what we have done here, we have specified the column annotation. We are saying that it should be unique, length is 24 maximum length, and then nullable will be false, email 100 is a maximum character, nullables will be false, user password 100 is a character maximum limit, nullable false. We have a boolean flag value which is enable, and where nullable is false. We have a first name, last name, created date, modified date, and then we have a collection of user roles where we are saying that many to many annotation. So what exactly it does, it will create a join table between user as well as role, and then there it does the mapping. So for that, this join table annotation, and this is a name of join table, and many to many annotation is specified here. So fetch type is eager, so that once we fetch the user object, all the corresponding roles should be loaded here. Then we have a constructor, setter, getter methods, and then followed by toString method. So we have a user role here annotated with the entity. Table is user role, extend from abstract entity, and only one attribute which is name, role name, and then constructors, and then setter, getter, and the toString method. So in the repository we have a repository annotation interface which is implemented, extended into entity repository basically. Entity repository is having all the generic type of implemented with the generic like get all and all. And then we have a abstract repository which is abstract class extended from implementing a entity repository, where we have certain constructors, entities, we have certain methods like based on the criteria. All these are implemented with the help of generics. And in this class what we have done, we are just auto wiring the session factory here. We are auto wiring the session factory here, and then we have written a method based on the generics here. And then we have a user repository where we are certain methods are there: get by id, get by name, delete, update, get all user, refresh user, size, and all. And same thing we have role repository, and we have a specific implementation of these repositories. So user repository impl extended from abstract repository. And implementing a user repository. So all ideally we need to keep the transaction on the service layer, but here I don't have any service layer, so I kept on the repository itself. But we should always make ourselves habit of keeping the transactions on the services instead of directly repositories. So we have a save user where we are saying that we are calling a super class abstract repository save put method which gonna save the user and all. So all these things are already there, and same thing we have done for user repository. So role repository annotated with the repository basically, extended from abstract repository. Generic is we have given a generic parameter here, user role, so it is binded to the user role. And then we have all implementation of some of the basic methods. So that's how the repositories are. Then we have a user manager where we are saying save user, update user, delete user, get user by id, name, or get all the user, get all the roles. So in the user manager impl we have injected a user repository as well as role repository, and by using their methods, and we have kept the transactions here. So by using their methods we are getting the values like save user repository dot save user, user repository dot update user, and delete user, and so on. And then same thing for role repository. So this is the Hibernate layer classes, and I am getting to the XML basically. So we have a data source configuration where we have configured a database initializer, so it's gonna pick up the SQL file and execute the complete SQL statement, so it will populate the database for us. And this is a data source configuration where we have initial pool size, min pool size, max pool size, data source increment, and all properties where we are specifying the data source, driver, class name, URL, username, password and all. So it's gonna create a data source for us. And then we have a persistence configuration where we have configured an abstract repository with the abstract attribute true, because that is abstract class, and then we are injecting a Hibernate session factory here. Then we are doing a component scan for repository, all the repositories basically. Then we are doing a Hibernate package scan for all the entity classes here. And here is some Hibernate properties which we have configured. So these property values are coming from the property files, which is Hibernate properties file, like Hibernate dilate, DDM, HBM, DDL auto, and then show SQL, format SQL, generate statistics and all. So all these things are coming from this property file. And then we are creating a Hibernate session factory. We are injecting data source, package to scan, as well as default Hibernate properties. And then we have a transaction manager configuration where we are injecting a Hibernate session factory, and we are just aliasing that transaction manager here. So this is how the Hibernate configuration is for the application. So let's get into the web part as well as security part. So we have a controller, basically it's a login controller. But before that, let's get into the web.x. So in the web application web application context web.xml, we have enabled the MVC and annotations. We have configured a JSTL view resolver, basically, which says that all the view name returned by controllers should be prefixed with this path and suffixed with this extension. Then we have application context.xml. This is a main root file where we are importing properties. We are enabling annotation configuration. We are doing component scan for the package, and then we are importing web.xml, persistence.xml, security.xml, and data source.xml. So in the security.xml, what we have specified that we have enabled all the method level security like pre-post enabled, and we have mentioned that all this mentioned URL should not be intercepted by Spring security filters. So, and in the HTTP tag, we have configured auto configuration true, create session always, request matching will be based on regex, and URL rewriting we have not disabled here, and we have disabled the header CSRF token. And then we are saying that URL with /login.do should given all the permissions. Then URL with home.do should have at least user role, admin role, or super admin role. And then we are saying user /home.do should have at least user role, admin role, or super admin role. And then URL with admin /home.do basically this is for user home, this is a application generic home, this is specific to user, this is specific to admin, and this is specific to the super admin. So for admin, at least admin or super admin role is required, and for super admin only admin super admin role is required to access that URL. Then we have a Spring security Spring login form configuration where we are saying that login form URL will be login.do. So, and the parameters in the login form should be j_username, j_password, and login process URL will be j_spring security check. Actually, this will be the action inside the form, and the default target URL will be home.do. And then in case of authentication failure, login fail.do gonna be a URL. In other cases, if any illegal access is there, then access.do gonna be a URL. And then for the case of logout.do will be the URL, and it's gonna invalidate the session. Here we have configured the authentication manager where we have provided a authentication provider. One is in memory user detail service, and this is our own custom user detail service which we have created here. So in login controller, we have a first method which is binded to login.do URL, which gonna represent us a login page. So basically, whenever any request comes, it will check whether whether the user is logged in. If the user is logged in, it's gonna it gonna allow to access that URL which he has requested based on his privileges. If he is not authorized to access it, access.do gonna execute. Otherwise, whatever the request URL is there, he can access that URL. In case if he is not logged in, then this URL will be generated, and then this URL will be intercepted by this controller method, and this login view gonna be shown into the client side. Then we have a login failed. In case of invalid credentials and all, again it gonna show the same page. For logout, it gonna show the logout page, and for any unauthorized access page gonna show in the client side. We have application controller. Basically, home.do is a URL for application generic home view, and superadmin/home is for superadmin view, and then admin/home is for admin view, and then user/home is for the user view. So all URLs are binded to a specific view based on the user's type. Then inside the security we have user detail service. So where there we have wrapped there we have masked the Spring Security user as well as user detail implementation. We have a user detail service, basically, which is implementation of user detail service of Spring Security. This class is annotated with the service as well as transactional read only, because we are not doing any DML operation inside that. We are just loading the user based on the username. So this this method gonna be executed, and username we gonna receive. So based on the username, we will call the user manager, and we'll pass the user object to that, and then we'll say get user. So get user, internally use user repository dot get user, and then it's gonna get unique by example and passing a user object. So it's gonna create a criteria, and then it's gonna get the user object for us inside this. So, and based on the user object, if username is invalid, it's gonna throw invalid invalid credential exception and or not. So we're gonna return a null object from there, and then later it's gonna show exception on the UI. So by getting user object, we're gonna get the user roles, and we are wrapping those user role in the simple guaranteed authorities, and then we are just wrapping all the information into user detail IMPL user details, and then we are returning that. So in this class we have auto-wide user manager so that we can use the methods. So this user manager we have configured here as a user service user detail service we have configured here as in the provider. So this is how the Java code looks like, and inside the resources we have application properties, where we have data source as well as data source related properties, and then Hibernate related properties here, where we have specified the dilets and other informations for Hibernate. And in the Spring we have application context.xml, which in turn call data source, persistence and security and web related configuration. Then in the SQL we have SQL script, which gonna execute as a part of database initializer here. And then we have ehcache.xml. basically this is a ehcache configuration and logback configuration, where we have a console appender as well as a rolling file appender. Then inside the web INF we have a CSS, where we have a bootstrap CSS style our own custom CSS. Inside JS we have bootstrap JS, jQuery JS, and then we have a style inside the web INF. So in the style we have all the template, like for side mesh, which this is a admin template, this is a generic template, and this is a template for user, where we have a user.jsp and we have footer.jsp basically. So we have all the templates in the admin template. What we have done, we are we have JSTL. We have imported a JSTL tag library here by using taglib. Then we have imported a site mesh tag by using taglibs. Then here what we are doing, we are just showing head and all, and importing CSS, JS files and all. Then we have a div where we are including a header dot style. Then we are showing some logout options and all, and then we are showing a body. So in the body we have actual view pages will be injected, and in the footer.jsp will be injected here. So same thing for default decorator.jsp and user decorator.jsp. Same thing, we have a segregation, header, footer and body, so like that. And then we have a index.jsp. So index.jsp basically redirect to the home.do. So if user is not logged in, login page will be shown, and after the successful authentication, generic application home page will be shown to the user. So we have a web.xml. In the web.xml we have a dispatcher servlet configuration, and then we have a context loader listener, and in the context param we have specified the application context.xml. We have a Spring security configuration here, delegating filter proxy filter we have configured, site mesh filter also we have configured here, and then we have a specific header footer configuration and welcome file list configuration here in the web.xml. Then we have a site mesh configuration and decorator.xml, where we have mentioned that JSON, XML or TXT related things will not be passed by site mesh, and other than that, for anything, default decorator will be responsible for presentation, and for /superadmin, admin decorator will be responsible for /admin decorator, and for user decorator will be responsible for presentation of pages. Then we have login.jsp. Basically in the login.jsp we have a taglib directive and page directive, where we have included a JSTL core tag library. We have imported bootstrap CSS and jQuery JS as well as bootstrap JS. Inside the container we have inside the bootstrap containers classes we have form. In the form we are showing error messages if error is there, and we have input button with the label. So label is username. For username label there is an input box with the j_username, and label for password we have a input button j_password and submit button here, and we have a CSRF hidden input field here. Then we have a generic home.jsp, where we have imported a security related tag as well as JSTL code tag by using taglib, and we have imported a bootstrap CSS, jQuery JS as well as bootstrap JS. Inside the container bootstrap container classes we are showing some messages, and inside this div tag, based on the user permission, by using Spring security tags, we are checking whether current user is having this role. If it is having this role, he can this URL will be shown to him, basically a button. So there is a group of buttons, so based on his privileges he can see the button. So super admin can see all the 3 links, admin can see only his as well as user, and user can see his link only. And then we have a access.html, where we are just saying that illegal access and all, whatever the message we are setting from the controller. Then we have a user home page, where we are showing some messages. Inside bootstrap container classes, super admin page, we are showing some messages, and admin class add a super admin home, where we are showing some messages inside the bootstrap container classes. So that's how the whole application looks like. So let's start the application first. npm install. So let's build it first. So here's the build successful, then I'll say mvn jt :run. So what will happen, any request comes to the application will be intercepted by the Spring security filter. Then Spring security filter gonna execute all the predefined configure filters, and then check for the request whether just request is from authenticate user. If it is not from authenticate user, it gonna show a login page so that user can log in, and then it gonna redirect, it gonna show a home page, application generic home page here. So here you can see that all Hibernate related logs, we can see here that it is finding, mapping the entities with the table, and then other things it's doing here. So here's the application container started at port number 8080. So so it says invalid credential, so it's like so now I can this is application generic application home page. This is common for all, so based on the privileges user can see these links. So I logged in as a super admin, so I can see all the all the buttons, links basically. So this is for super admin home, then this is for admin home, and this is for user home. So now I am gonna log in from admin user. So admin user can see his admin home page as well as user home page, but super admin home page link is not visible for the admin user. And then you can see you can log into the user, where user can see his own home page as well as a generic application, common application home page. So that's how we can do. And here, because of SQL formatting, show SQL as well as SQL format true, you can see all the queries which is generated from Hibernate to data sent back to the database. We can see all these things here. So you can just analyze the log and trace the flow if you are not clear with this. And if you have any query or anything, please comment on the YouTube channel. So I'm gonna share this code inside my GitHub repository, which is Adarsh Kumar Singh 83/spring_security. So my previous applications are already there. You can pull it up and you can play around with this. So I hope this will help you to understand how we can configure Spring Security, Spring MVC, and Hibernate together for authentication as well as presenting data in the JSP pages. So I guess it will really helpful for you if you just go through this. Till then, take care. Bye.